Imagine this. You are offered the chance to wear a multi-million-dollar tiara on your own wedding day, a true masterpiece steeped in history, and you say no. Sounds crazy, right? Yet, that is exactly what several European princesses did. Why would they turn down a treasure others could only dream of? What shadow fell upon this tiara after its first owner's tragic fate? And how did the chief relic of an entire nation, a symbol of its grandeur, end up in such deplorable condition that it was deemed too embarrassing for a museum display? Was it simple superstition, a hushed family scandal, or a cold financial calculation bordering on national betrayal? Today, we will tell the full story. Be sure to watch until the very end to discover where this legendary treasure is hidden now. Picture the gleaming grand ballroom where representatives of Europe's most ancient aristocratic houses have gathered. Camera flashes glitter off diamonds, soft music drifts through the air, heavy with the scent of history and power. And at the heart of this splendor stands an elderly lady whose posture and serene dignity speak volumes beyond any mere title. This is Queen Margarita of Bulgaria. Resting on her silver hair is a treasure that seems to radiate not only the cold brilliance of its stones, but also the warmth of human destinies. The Bulgarian Fleur-de-Lys tiara. This image, etched into the memory of many, is but the final chapter in a long and dramatic chronicle. Adorned with the heraldic lilies of the House of Bourbon, this tiara is more than just an accessory. It is a relic, an emblem of a throne long vanished, a silent witness to the rise and fall of an entire dynasty. It has seen opulent weddings and quiet funerals, the glitter of a royal court and the dust of exile, love, betrayal, and oblivion. It outlasted its creators, its first wearers, and even the Bulgarian Tsardom itself, for which it was crafted. But what if, beneath all this splendor, there lies not just a history, but a true saga? What if every ruby, emerald, and diamond in this tiara is a frozen tear or a spark of hope from the fates of those who wore it? To grasp the true purpose behind the creation of the Fleur-de-Lys tiara, we must transport ourselves to the late 19th century. This was the Belle Époque, an era of dizzying optimism, technological breakthroughs, and ostentatious luxury. While old empires, such as Austria-Hungary and Russia, shone brightly at the twilight of their power, new young nations were emerging on the map of Europe. One such state was the Bulgarian Principality, which had only recently, in 1878, shaken off centuries of Ottoman rule and was desperately seeking its place under the European sun. At the helm of this burgeoning nation stood the ambitious and politically savvy Prince Ferdinand I of the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Of German origin and having been elected to the Bulgarian throne, he understood perfectly. For his rule and dynasty to be recognized by the great powers, he needed not just political clout, but dynastic splendor. And the surest way to achieve this was through marriage. Not just any marriage, but a union with a representative of one of Europe's most ancient and illustrious royal houses. His choice fell upon Princess Marie-Louise of Bourbon-Parma, a direct heiress to the French kings. The wedding, scheduled for 1893, was intended to be more than a personal celebration. It was a grand political declaration. Such an event demanded appropriate symbols. Ferdinand, keen to emphasize the status of his court, turned not to local artisans, but to one of the most prestigious jewelry firms of the era, Vienna's House of Köchert. This choice was no accident. Köchert were official purveyors to the Austrian imperial court of the Habsburgs. Commissioning a wedding gift from them meant aligning his nascent monarchy with the greatest empires. The design Ferdinand presented to the Viennese jewelers was ingenious in its symbolic layers. This was not meant to be merely a beautiful ornament, but a genuine dynastic manifesto. The tiara's design had to intertwine two key elements: the grandeur of old Europe and the spirit of new Bulgaria. On one side, the heraldic lily, the famous Fleur-de-Lys, an unbreakable symbol of the French royal house of Bourbon, to which the bride belonged. On the other, the colors of the Bulgarian national flag, white, green, and red, embodied in diamonds, emeralds, and rubies. Thus, even at the sketch stage, the tiara was conceived as the embodiment of a union. It was a marriage not only of Ferdinand and Marie-Louise, but also a marriage of the ancient legitimacy of the Bourbons with the youthful energy of the Bulgarian people. The jewelers from the House of Cochet faced a formidable challenge: to clothe this complex political idea in a flawless artistic form. They had to create a masterpiece that, by its very appearance, would proclaim to the world the birth of a powerful new dynasty in the Balkans. And they succeeded. Let us, for a moment, set aside history and ownership and look at the tiara itself, as if we were a jeweler bending over a workbench under the glow of gaslight. Let us examine it as the masters of the House of Cochet saw it, bringing concept to life in metal and stone. At the core of the ornament lies a light, almost weightless filigree framework, most likely platinum, the most fashionable and progressive metal of that era. Only platinum, with its strength and silvery white luster, allowed for such ethereal yet robust structures that would not distract from the main focus, the symphony of precious stones. Crowning the composition are three majestic heraldic lilies, the very Fleur-de-Lys. These are not merely decorative flourishes, but powerful, architecturally precise elements. The central lily, the largest, rises above the others like a monarch over subjects, while the two slightly smaller side lilies create harmonious and regal symmetry. Every line, every curve of these lilies was designed to proclaim the ancient lineage and nobility of the Bourbon family, whose blood was now merging with the new Bulgarian dynasty. Now, about the stones that form this tri-colored declaration. The white of the Bulgarian flag is represented by diamonds. Hundreds of old-cut stones, cushion and rose cuts, were selected with incredible meticulousness. Cochet's jewelers did not simply set diamonds, they literally painted with light. The stones are mounted to catch the slightest ray, be it daylight or the flicker of ballroom candles, and explode into a myriad of dazzling sparks. The total weight of these diamonds was a fortune, but their true value lay in their perfect selection for clarity and color, transforming the tiara into an icy flame. But the true heart of this ornament beats in its color: green and red, emeralds and rubies. To find dozens of cabochons and faceted stones that perfectly match in shade is a task that would make even the gemologists of the greatest jewelry houses sweat today. The velvety, deep green of selected emeralds symbolized the fertile lands and hopes of young Bulgaria. And the drops of rubies, blazing with the saturated hue of pigeon's blood, spoke of bravery, sacrifice, and the blood shed for the country's independence. This is not merely an inlay, it is the high art of sculptural jewelry. Each stone is set in an individual, barely visible cradle setting, a prong setting, which allows light to penetrate the stone from all sides, revealing its very soul. The entire structure was balanced with engineering precision so that despite its impressive appearance and value, comparable to a small town's annual budget, the tiara was not a heavy burden, but rested lightly and gracefully upon its owner's coiffure. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to hold it, to feel the cool smoothness of platinum, the barely perceptible weight of history, and the almost physical radiance emanating from hundreds of facets. To hear not a sound, but the silent music of light dancing within the stones. In that moment you understand, this is no mere object. Before you lies an artifact where the cold geology of minerals and the fiery politics of people have fused into a single, perfect work of art. The day of April 20th, 1893. The air at Villa Pianore in Italy was electric. Here, at the ancestral estate of the Dukes of Parma, the crème de la crème of European aristocracy had gathered to witness a union destined to alter the balance of power in the Balkans. But on this day, all titles, ranks, and political intrigues faded when she appeared in the hall, Princess Marie-Louise. Young, in a magnificent wedding gown, she bore the weight of a nation's hopes. And crowning her ensemble, its final and most resounding chord, was the new tiara. This was her debut, her baptism by fire. As the princess entered the hall, a collective gasp of admiration rippled through the guests, instantly replaced by analytical whispers. On her head shone more than just an ornament. It was a coronation before the coronation. The Bourbon diamond lilies sparkling on her brow were a homage to her past and her glorious lineage. But the fiery rubies and deep emeralds, shimmering with her every step, loudly proclaimed her future. In that moment, she ceased to be merely Marie-Louise of Parma. She became the future princess and later Queen of Bulgaria. The tiara didn't just complement her look, it created it. It became the visual embodiment of her new status. In the brilliance of its stones, everything could be read. Her husband Ferdinand's ambitions, the political calculation, the demonstration of the new court's financial might, and the promise made to the Bulgarian people. The ornament, crafted in Vienna at the heart of old Europe, now belonged to the Balkans. It was a powerful signal to all the monarchs and diplomats present. Bulgaria would, from now on, have to be reckoned with. The reaction of contemporaries was like a wave. Newspapers vied to describe the splendor of the wedding gifts, but it was the tiara that became the star of the society pages. It was discussed in the salons of Paris, the clubs of London, and the courts of Vienna and St. Petersburg. Some admired its bold and modern design, others enviously calculated its exorbitant cost, while still others, the most perceptive, deciphered the political message encoded within it. On that April day in Italy, the Fleur-de-Lys tiara ceased to be merely an expensive creation from the House of Cochet. It acquired a name, a history, and a destiny. It absorbed the atmosphere of that triumphant moment, becoming a symbol of dynastic success and a pledge of future grandeur. Its debut was not just successful, it was resounding. A legend was born before the eyes of all Europe. Following its triumphant debut, the Fleur-de-Lys tiara was not tucked away in a vault, awaiting the next grand event. On the contrary, for the young Princess Marie-Louise, it became almost part of her official regalia. In the reality of the nascent Bulgarian court, desperately striving for European recognition, this ornament was not a luxury, but a working instrument. The tiara became her constant companion at all official ceremonies, diplomatic receptions, and state visits. It was in this very piece that she posed for most of her official portraits, which were dispatched to all royal courts across Europe, shaping the image of the new Bulgarian monarchy. The ornament became an integral part of her public image, her calling card. When contemporaries spoke of the Princess of Bulgaria, they inevitably pictured her in this very tiara. She did not merely wear it, she carried it with dignity, transforming it from a wedding gift into a crown. Against the backdrop of more traditional, classical diadems worn by other European princesses, Marie-Louise's tiara stood out with its boldness and almost defiant symbolism. It was a loud statement, and the young princess, fully aware of this, wielded its power to the fullest extent. One of the most famous stories from this period revolves around her appearance at the wedding of the Duke of Schleswig-Holstein in 1898. At this dazzling assembly of European royalty and nobility, where every lady vied to outshine the others with the brilliance of her family jewels, the Fleur-de-Lys tiara created a sensation. It wasn't overshadowed by the ancient diamonds of the Habsburgs or the Romanovs. Its vibrant national colors and audacious design captivated everyone's attention, sparking conversations not just about the beauty of the ornament, but also about the political ambitions of the nation it represented. However, the most poignant and iconic moment of this golden age arrived shortly before its tragic end. In late 1898, already gravely ill after the birth of her fourth child, Marie-Louise posed for a series of portraits by the celebrated artist Philip de Laszlo. In these canvases, she is depicted wearing her beloved tiara. Looking at these portraits today, it's impossible to shake off a feeling of profound melancholy. We see not merely a royal figure in ceremonial regalia, we see a fragile young woman who, perhaps already aware of her fate, wears for the final time the symbol of her duty, her love, and her fleeting yet brilliant life. Was the tiara a talisman for her? Likely so. Within it, everything converged. Pride in her lineage, symbolized by the Bourbon lilies, and responsibility to her new homeland, whose colors blazed in the rubies and emeralds. This ornament was the physical embodiment of her destiny, which she embraced with honor. She was its first, and arguably most intrinsic wearer, for whom every element of the tiara was imbued with personal, living meaning. Her untimely passing in January 1899, at the age of just 29 years old, abruptly closed this golden chapter. The tragedy was shattering, and the tiara, which only yesterday had gleamed with the hope and brilliance of a young court, became a relic overnight. It forever absorbed the memory of its first mistress, and from that moment on, its sparkle was permanently tinged with a shadow of gentle sorrow for the queen who had departed too soon. The golden age had ended, and for the tiara, a new, far more complicated life was beginning. With the departure of Queen Marie-Louise, the bright light surrounding the tiara dimmed. The ornament, crafted for joy and triumph, was left orphaned. And as often happens with objects marked by great love and great tragedy, shadows began to gather around it, and whispers started to emerge. For decades, the tiara appeared almost never in public. King Ferdinand's second wife, Queen Eleanor, hardly ever wore it, whether out of respect for her predecessor's memory, or perhaps intuitively sensing that this jewel was forever bound to one singular fate. After the abolition of the monarchy in 1946, when the royal family was forced to leave Bulgaria, the tiara completely vanished from public view, its brilliance concealed amidst the turmoil of exile. It was during this period of oblivion that the first legends began to emerge. Whispers started that the tiara bore the imprint of sorrow, that the ornament, having witnessed the incredibly early and tragic death of its first mistress, had transformed from a talisman into a kind of widow's crown. This, of course, is merely speculation, a beautiful and melancholic piece of folklore devoid of any documented proof. However, it is precisely this aura of quiet tragedy that may hold one of the keys to unraveling the subsequent, entirely real and strange events connected to the treasure. The most prominent modern mystery is a series of rejections. When it was time for the sons of King Simeon, the last Bulgarian monarch, to marry, the tiara was, according to rumors, offered as a bridal ornament to their fiancés, and, to the astonishment of many, it was refused. Later, Simeon's own daughter, Princess Kalina, also did not wear the historic relic when she married. Why? Was it superstition and an unwillingness to link their marriage to a jewel marked by sorrow? Or was the reason more mundane? Perhaps the tiara's complex patriotic design seemed too cumbersome and old-fashioned to modern princesses? Or could hidden family disagreements have been behind these refusals? We can only guess, but the fact remains. The principal dynastic tiara remained unclaimed by its own heiresses. Then, it got even stranger. Several years ago, shocking information leaked. When the idea arose to display the tiara in one of Bulgaria's museums, it was discovered to be in a deplorable state. This fact is no longer a legend, but almost a scandal. How could a national symbol, a masterpiece from the House of Koschut, fall into such disrepair? Was it simple negligence during storage in the years of exile? Or even worse, were attempts made to remove its stones for sale? This question still hangs in the air, casting a shadow over the most recent owners and hinting at possible financial difficulties that are not spoken of openly. And finally, the greatest secret, which, in essence, provides an answer to many previous questions. Where is the tiara now? According to the latest data from jewelry experts, the trail of the ornament leads to the private Albion art collection. The phrasing, presumably sold, sounds like a verdict. The sale of a major historical relic is no longer just a shadow. It is a final act that many would consider a betrayal of memory. This event clearly separates facts from myths. Behind the legends of curses and rejections, a harsh financial reality most likely stood. The tiara, born as a manifesto of grandeur, ended its journey as a lot in a private transaction, the details of which are hidden from the public. The dark side of its fame turned out to be mundane, and therefore even more sorrowful. The end of an era for the Fleur-de-Lys tiara did not arrive under the hammer blows of an auctioneer or the flashes of camera lights. It came in silence. There were no sensational headlines in the press, no frenzy among collectors. The great relic departed from its last royal owners, not in full view of the world, but through a private, undisclosed transaction. This moment, when a signature on a document transformed a national symbol into an object of buying and selling, marked the true finale of its more than 100-year history. This was not merely a transfer of ownership, it was a shift in the very essence of the object. As long as the tiara belonged to the family, even a family in exile, it remained a living fragment of history, a carrier of dynastic memory. It was connected to people, their destinies, their very blood. But the moment it transitioned into the anonymous Albion art collection, it died as a relic and was reborn as an investment asset. Its historical value was converted into financial worth. The soul departed, leaving only a pristine shell of platinum and stones. One can only imagine the emotional maelstrom that raged behind closed doors before this decision was made. For King Simeon and Queen Margherita, this wasn't merely saying goodbye to an object, it was bidding farewell to the last tangible vestige of their lost world. It was a poignant adieu to the memory of Marie-Louise, of Boris and Giovanna, of their ancestors' dreams. It was likely an agonizing choice, dictated by stark necessity, yet no less bitter for it. To let go of the tiara meant acknowledging that all hopes for the restoration of the monarchy had finally faded, and that the time had come to close the final chapter in the grand saga of the Bulgarian monarchy. Following this quiet transaction, the tiara's life in the shadows began. It vanished. Not just from the public stage, it essentially ceased to exist for the wider world. Now, its brilliance no longer illuminates ballrooms or museum display cases. It is hidden deep within a private vault, accessible only to the gaze of its new, anonymous owner. From a symbol belonging to an entire nation, it transformed into a secret, a treasure locked away from prying eyes. And in this quiet oblivion, there lies a tragic irony. The ornament, which was conceived as a resounding manifesto, a declaration of a new dynasty's birth, concluded its public journey silently and unremarkably. Its fate mirrored precisely the destiny of the very monarchy it was meant to glorify. A bright, promising dawn, a brief golden age, a long exile, and a quiet, almost imperceptible twilight. An era had ended. And here, at the point of its disappearance, the story of the Fleur-de-Lys tiara could very well have ended. But magnificent masterpieces do not vanish without a trace. They merely recede, awaiting their moment to return to the global stage with even greater triumph. And while this return has not yet occurred, we, as historians and connoisseurs, can confidently predict what it will be like. The second birth of this tiara is merely a matter of time. Imagine for a moment that tomorrow global news agencies explode with the headline, "The Lost Bulgarian Fleur-de-Lys Tiara to be auctioned at Christie's in Geneva." What an impact that would make. Collectors, museums, historians, descendants of aristocratic lines, all would follow this event with bated breath. Preview exhibitions in Paris, London, and New York would draw long lines. Experts would recount its story again and again, and its image would grace the covers of every glossy and art history magazine. On the day of the auction, the hall would be filled with tense silence. And when the tiara, resting on black velvet beneath the spotlights, appears before the public, it would no longer be merely an ornament. It would be the spectre of a bygone era returned to assert its presence. And the battle for it would be fierce. Not only anonymous billionaires would vie for the right to possess it, but perhaps even representatives of the Bulgarian government, keen to repatriate a national treasure, or perhaps even a major European museum. And this is where the most fascinating transformation will occur, a complete reinterpretation of its meaning. If, a century ago, the tiara was seen as a symbol of the future, a beacon promising grandeur, now it will be regarded as a poignant artifact of the past. Its vibrant patriotic hues will no longer proclaim national pride aloud. Instead, they will softly whisper tales of national tragedy and a lost kingdom. The heraldic Bourbon lilies will serve as a reminder not of a glorious alliance, but of the inherent fragility of all dynastic ambitions. The tiara will metamorphose from a bold political manifesto into a poignant elegy, a tangible embodiment of nostalgia for a world that has irrevocably vanished. It is precisely this new understanding that will propel its value to astronomical heights. Its ultimate price will be derived not merely from the intrinsic value of its diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. Its paramount value will be its rich, storied history. Its impeccable yet tragic provenance, crafted by the esteemed House of Cochet, first worn by a tragically fated queen, witnessing the brilliance of exile, and finally, the mystery of its sale. Every twist and turn in its journey will add millions to its final price tag. This will mark the zenith of its recognition, the precise moment its historical significance attains its supreme financial articulation. And whoever becomes its new custodian will acquire not merely a precious jewel, but a tangible, resonant fragment of grand European history. Its second birth will serve as its ultimate canonization. So, where does this sliver of history, this precious phantom of a departed kingdom, rest today? The answer to that question is simultaneously straightforward and disappointingly intricate. Its current address is neither a royal treasury in Sofia nor a gleaming display case in the Louvre or the Victoria and Albert Museum. The Fleur-de-Lys tiara resides within the impenetrable depths of the private Albion art collection, and this very location defines its current and likely definitive status. A pivotal transformation has taken place. From a living participant in history, an accessory that seemed to breathe alongside its wearer, sharing in her joys and sorrows, it has been reduced to a mere exhibit. Even if that exhibit is accessible to but a single viewer, it is no longer worn, it is preserved. It has transcended the category of mere adornment to become an artifact. Its purpose now is not to embellish, but to bear silent witness. Its mission is no longer to sparkle at lavish balls, but to silently safeguard the memory of an era it has outlived. How do we appraise its value today? Any figure cited would be but a pale echo of its true worth, for its value defies simple gemological calculation. Its price is woven from four unseen yet powerful components. The first is its impeccable and dramatic provenance, its very history. The second, the esteemed name of its creator, the Viennese House of Cochet. The third is, undeniably, the material worth of its stones and platinum. And the fourth, the most crucial, is its historical gravitas. It stands as a symbol of an entire nation, a dream of greatness frozen in precious stone. When we weigh these components, we realize that the Fleur-de-Lys tiara today is more accurately compared not to other jewels, but to the canvases of old masters, one-of-a-kind manuscripts, or priceless archaeological discoveries. Its current owner, whoever that may be, has acquired not merely a costly artifact. They have become the custodian of a monument to world history, and upon them, albeit implicitly, rests the solemn responsibility of preserving this treasure for generations to come. Thus, the true custodian of eternity for this tiara is not a specific individual or family, but rather the very principle of cultural preservation. It now belongs to global culture, even as it resides in private hands. Its physical form may be locked away in a vault, but its history, its legend, its profound significance, these are already the birthright of all who are drawn to beauty, power, and the relentless march of time. So, we circle back to where we began. The image of a majestic lady adorned with a tiara that feels heavier not from the sheer carat weight of its diamonds, but from the immense burden of history it carries. We pose the question, what if, beneath that dazzling sparkle, something far more profound lay hidden? Having journeyed all the way from the Viennese jeweler's workshop to the hushed sanctity of a private vault, we have indeed found an exhaustive answer. The drama concealed beneath the brilliance of its stones is, in fact, life itself. A life brimming with hopes, triumphs, profound losses, and arduous decisions. Why, then, did this tiara, born as the very emblem of a nascent monarchy, ultimately become its poignant epitaph? Because it proved to be a perfect mirror. Within its gleaming facets, it perfectly reflected the entire brief yet brilliant destiny of the Bulgarian Tsardom in the 20th century. Its audacious ambitions, its fleeting heyday, its tragic downfall, and its quiet fading into exile. The destiny of this magnificent jewel became inextricably intertwined with the fate of the people and the nation for whom it was meticulously crafted. It did not bring misfortune. Rather, it honestly shared the very destiny of its successive owners. Herein lies the central revelation of our inquiry. The Bulgarian Fleur-de-Lys tiara stands as a consummate example of how cold metal and seemingly inanimate minerals can become the tangible embodiment of human passions. Encoded within its design are political ambitions, embedded in its stones, vows of fidelity, echoing through its history, whispers of love and sorrow, and finally, in its ultimate sale, the stark realities of pragmatism and bitter necessity. It ceased being merely an object and transformed into a living chronicle. It imparts to us a fundamental truth. The authentic value of a magnificent jewel is never merely measured in carats or clarity. Instead, it is measured by the profound depth of the stories it can tell. It is measured by the countless human destinies it has intertwined with. Such artifacts are not simply assets. They are intricate conduits connecting generations, linking epochs, and binding entire civilizations. Its physical form may be ensconced within the most secure vault in the world, yet its very soul, its enduring history, now belongs to eternity. It lives on in old portraits, in yellowed newspaper clippings, in archival documents, and in narratives precisely like this one. And as long as we remember and recount this epic saga of ascent and decline, the Fleur-de-Lys tiara continues to radiate, even when shrouded in complete darkness. For true masterpieces achieve immortality not through the brilliance of their facets, but through the enduring legends they leave in their wake.